did get both
You
of the
did.
script, okay.
And I brought what
I'm sorry?
I brought what we put by her desk.
Oh,
and I
thank
put
you.
it there. Okay.
Ms. Bates, you running this show today? Are you running this show today? Okay, cool.
Well, for a while, anyway.
Just I know who to listen to first.
Okay. I call to order the June 12th, 2017 regular meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience and board members to please silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates.
Present.
Ms. Bolton.
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman. Here. Ms. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Monero.
Here.
Mr. Nelms.
Here.
President Copeland-Dansby.
I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting, June 12, 2017, special public meeting, June 12, 2017, regular board meeting, June 12, 2017. Is there a second?
Second.
Did we get a first? Let's get a maker of the motion first.
I move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? As presented, Ms. Jones, as Chair of the Policy Committee, please present the June 12, 2017 Policy Committee meeting report.
Yes, thank you. I would like to present the minutes of the June 12th meeting of Policy Committee. There is a resolution to approve a revised policy tonight, and I won't read the rest of the minutes, but I submit it as written.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman, as Chair of the Ad Hoc Committee, please present the June 16th, 2017 and June 20th, 2017 Ad Hoc Committee meeting reports.
Sure. So as you can see in our minutes here, we are continuing the work that was assigned to us by the full board of taking all of the strategic goals that the board developed during our retreat, figuring out how do we get those into a workable document where we can monitor our progress. And then at the next meeting, we discussed our 2018 board meeting calendar. So taking some of the feedback from the changes we made this year, figuring out how to make it even better for next year, and you see that in front of you tonight as a resolution. So I submit both of those reports as written.
Any questions for Mrs. Hoffman? Ms. Bolton, as the acting chair of the Finance Committee, please present the June 20th, 2017 Finance Committee report.
Thank you. We continue the work regarding preschool promise and preschool expansion. We received, as we always do, the monthly reports regarding the treasurer's financial updates. Significantly tonight, if you vote in favor of these minutes from our most recent Finance Committee, you'll be voting to endorse as a whole board the treasurer's new year goals. And I know that we've had those submitted and attached, so you've all had an opportunity to review that. Also interesting in that is we have the lobbyist reports on a number of important items as the Ohio budget rounds the corner and gets adopted, hopefully, in some way, shape, or form. But most importantly, I think moving ahead is probably adopting the new goals for our treasurer. I submit as written.
Any questions? We need a voice vote to accept the committee reports as written. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. This evening's first presentation will be regarding the STEM banner at Hughes High School. So this is being presented by Pat Bruns, our representative from the State Board of Education. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, good evening, Superintendent Ronan, Board President, board members, and those in attendance. As a career educator and longtime fan of the innovative programs and partnerships that CPS has developed, I'm delighted to be here making this presentation to the Hughes STEM School this evening. It is a testimony to the vision and leadership that Superintendent Ronan has nurtured throughout her distinguished tenure, and one that continues the legacy of an English shoemaker, Thomas Hughes, who built the first Hughes School in 1853. I know that as Superintendent Ronan passes the baton to Laura Mitchell, she is assured that our parents and students will continue to enjoy a diverse range of school choices, such as the Hughes STEM School. Choices that will continue to open exciting doors of opportunities for CPS's 34,000 students who come to us from over 100 countries and speak 70 languages. The future is indeed bright for our young scholars and tomorrow's leaders. I know that empowering all students with the knowledge and 21st century skills that they will need to chart their own future is at the heart of CPS's Vision 2020. Specifically, the My Tomorrow platform gives parents, teachers, and students important tools to help students navigate options and truly tailor an individualized education that meets the needs of the whole child and prepares students to actively pursue their chosen career paths. And I agree wholeheartedly, as it says on your website, students that are ready for the real world, ready to lead in the workplace, impact their communities, and engage in a constantly evolving economy. With the opening of the Hughes STEM School in 2009, these opportunities are being realized for students through career paths in engineering, health sciences, software development, plant and animal sciences. In addition, a partnership between Hughes and the University of Cincinnati creates a summer bridge program for rising seniors, and then offers them internships and enrichment classes at UC during the school year. There are also other opportunities for involvement in the arts, my favorite subject, athletics, National Honor Society, MORE, which stands for Men, Organized, Respectful, and Educated, which is a nationally recognized youth leadership initiative, just to name a few. I also understand that CPS is a recent recipient of a generous $15,000 Duke Energy grant that will encourage teachers to pursue STEM teacher certification, thus helping teachers expand STEM career path opportunities for their students. Again, another testimony to the confidence our business partners have in CPS's vision and their commitment to our future leaders. And this investment can pay really big dividends when you consider that the national average starting salary in a STEM career is over $64,000, and in the next 5 years, we expect to see a 20% increase in STEM career jobs. So, it is my distinct honor as your elected member of the Ohio Board of Education to acknowledge that the Hughes STEM School exemplifies the Ohio Department of Education's STEM school designation as a learning environment that encourages design and inquiry-based learning, and has earned this distinction because the Hughes STEM School has formed working partnerships with both public and private entities, including higher education and business organizations, and offers a rigorous, diverse, integrated, and project-based curriculum for its students. The Hughes STEM School demonstrates a commitment to preparing students for future jobs that will be in demand and well paid, and that the Hughes STEM School ensures that students are actively engaged in teamwork and learning research and critical thinking skills that will help them be successful in life no matter what path they choose. Therefore, I'm honored to present the Hughes STEM School with a banner that contains a special STEM designation that they may display in their schools. I hope this will help the community members recognize the good work being done here by leadership, teachers, students, and the community, who are all working together to indeed make the future bright for our young scholars and tomorrow's leaders. Again, much gratitude to Superintendent Ronan and her leadership team, and for your forward-thinking vision. A very special appreciation I extend to Principal Kathy Wright and her leadership team at Hughes STEM School. I know that these caring educators are the ones charged with bringing these exciting programs to life, and that they are every day dedicated to inspiring all of our students to dream big. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, very nice.
I will hand this over. Yeah. You do everything here, don't you, really, Ms. Walsh? Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for all your good work.
Do board members have any questions or comments?
Oh, hey, I'm here. Here I are.
They want to show the audience.
Hi, folks. How are you?
Any questions or comments?
I'm not used to these big things. I'm used to
Want to see the
things
banner?
like this with folks. Hi. Beautiful.
Nice.
Well, Hughes STEM School deserves it. Any questions for me? I'm not sure. I'm just the messenger here. I could ask that question.
I have a question. How many other public schools are STEM designated
Oh, I think there are 52 total.
in the state?
And so, you know, again, innovation, CPS, you're on the cutting edge.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our next presentation is an update on the Imagination Library presented by Dr. Greg Zumias. I hope I'm pronouncing that. Zumias? Zumas? And Tiana Henry. And they are from the Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. Welcome.
Well, thank you. We are happy to be back again to give a little bit update on the Imagination Library pilot here in Cincinnati. As you said, I'm Greg Schumlas. I'm a pediatrician at Cincinnati Children's with a special interest in early childhood literacy and kindergarten readiness. And this is my colleague, Tiana Henry, who does all the work. She's our outreach coordinator. And just briefly, for those not familiar with the program, the Imagination Library is a literacy promotion program that's really spread nationwide, first started by Dolly Parton in her hometown. And it's shown to be effective in communities that have had the program to really increase reading at home and increase kindergarten readiness. The program serves children from birth until age 5, and it operates by sending a book directly to the home of all the enrolled children once a month until their 5th birthday. So if a child is enrolled from birth, they'll end up with a library of 60 books. Every month to all the enrolled children, there are actually 6 different books that go out, so each different age group will get an age-appropriate book. Here in Cincinnati, we also have another literacy promotion program that's been around for a while called Reach Out and Read. And this program works through the medical providers. And during well child checks, it's just kind of a structure so that we always talk about reading and promote reading at home. In Cincinnati, we're organized into a pretty well-run coalition. We're in 24 clinics that reach about 30,000 patient visits a year. And we really operate in many of the clinics that serve the underserved here in Cincinnati. So a little bit of a unique thing about our program is the combination of the two programs. So we're hoping that the synergy between the two will kind of have better results than either alone. So Reach Out and Read is really good about reaching children, especially those living in poverty, and getting the message about reading and the importance out there, but we only get to send them home with about 10 books over the 5 years. The Imagination Library is really great about getting books out into the home, a library of 60 books, but a big criticism of the Imagination Library is that you're just sending out the books and nobody's really making sure people do anything with them. So we're able to not only get the books, but talk about reading throughout the 5 years that they're enrolled. Another big plus of the constant contact we have is that we found that our families are really mobile, so we can touch base and ask them if they're getting their books and if they've moved, if we can change their address. We estimate there's about 10,000 children living in poverty within the Cincinnati Public School District, and our goal was to reach about 85% of them. And we're happy to report that we reached that goal and surpassed it. Presently, we have over 9,300 kids enrolled in the Imagination Library, and we hit our 8,500 mark at about 16 months of operation. We've been really successful in recruiting a broad age range, so we have pretty much an even distribution between 0 to 5. And we've got some pretty good coverage over the Cincinnati Public School District. The district is outlined in the dark line, and the colors are the poverty zone. So red, yellows, and the oranges are the highest poverty, and we're happy to see that our highest concentrations are in the red zones in Cincinnati. And so with the 9,000 children we have enrolled, we're sending out 9,000 books a month. And so as of June, we've sent out 135,000 books into the community. Now, with our pilot, every year we're going to be looking at kindergarten readiness scores as these children reach school. And actually this year we do have a small cohort that was exposed to the Imagination Library that went to kindergarten. We're just looking at some preliminary data, and actually we don't really expect to see a difference because these children were exposed to the Imagination Library an average of 5 months. So I know getting 5 books right before you start kindergarten is going to make a big difference. Once we kind of clean up the data, we'll share more with you, but I think what this will be really helpful is more of a baseline for our group, because we're finding that our cohort is actually doing worse than average. So I think it'll help us as we move forward. One interesting thing that we did see, though, is a link with kindergarten readiness and the amount of reading at the home. And when we enroll children, we ask a question about reading at home, whether they read and share books rarely, which is less than 2 days, some days, which is 2 to 4 days, or most days, which is 5 to 7 days. And in the small cohort that got to kindergarten this year, of the group that reported reading rarely at home, none of them demonstrated readiness on the kindergarten test. And as we moved up to Sundays, we had 18% that demonstrated readiness, 41% was approaching readiness, and 40% had emerging readiness. And finally, with most days, the demonstrating readiness was up to 27%. So while we'd like to get those percentages even higher, I think it's an indication that as we increase reading, we should see improved kindergarten readiness. And we do know that we are increasing reading. This is a question that we ask children at their well child checks, the same question, how much they're reading at home. The top line are the families that report reading most days. And before we started the Imagination Library pilot, we were at about 48%, which we've been at for years. And since the program started, we've now increased to 58%, and we're continuing to go up. So 58% of our families report reading most days. And maybe even more importantly, the bottom line is the people reporting rarely reading, which was at 10%, and we've now decreased down to 7%, and you can see that's creeping down also. Now I'm going to let Tiana talk a little bit about some of our community.
So presently, we are furnishing the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority with books that have been returned with undeliverable addresses. And they created the First Learning Floating Library. And it's actually in the Millville neighborhood, and it's one of CMHA's efforts to promote early childhood literacy. They're providing the books for children 0 to 10, and they're actually having a lot of the older children read to the younger children. This program has been recognized by the Public Housing Authority, the National Public Housing Authority Honor Roll by the Washington, D.C.-based Campaign for Grade Level Reading. In addition to the community outreach, this story is one of the favorites of our office. So when the children graduate, that's when they turn 5, they get a book called Look Out Kindergarten, Here I Come. Well, this young man received the Lookout Kindergarten Here I Come book, and he sent us a thank you card. It was so nice to open up a thank you card from a child who said they enjoyed the books, they read them all, and he's still reading them. We actually got a chance to meet the young man and his mother, and they were totally in love with Imagination Library. So that's something that we definitely want to share, that parents, and they're really bonding over our program. In addition to talking to you all about some of the outreach programs, we have a lot of other things we're doing, but I also want to empower you all. As you all can look on the dais, we have given you books. So what I am asking you to do is check out the book. If you have someone in your life that is a little person that may enjoy the book, pass it on. We are so excited about this program, and it has continued to grow. The partnership really works very well with Reach Out and Read and Imagination Library, and it's just been a wonderful report to hear that parents and children are bonding over books. Are there any questions?
Board members? Yes, Mr. Nelms.
Thank you for the presentation, and it's good to see that you're working with CMHA because they have a large population
Yes.
that needs access to literature. But I wanted to say that one of my personal mottos, even when I was a child, was, if you can read, you can lead. And that reading opened up vistas of new horizons and just creativity, not only in your thinking, but in your environment. And I made it a practice, I think about 4 years ago. I have several grandchildren that when their birthday come around, I don't give them money, I don't give them cards, I give them a book.
All right.
So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and it's so good to get started early, and it really does pinpoint the need to have the families be directly involved in building literacy. And so I think that's great, and it's better coming from you all necessarily than just us always saying it. So that, because of your credibility, and we're always demanding things of families. I would really appreciate a copy of the presentation tonight. I'm particularly interested in that map that you showed regarding the district and the concentration of poverty and what have you, as well as the graphs that you showed that would be very helpful for us, not only the whole board, but certainly in the Student Achievement Committee. I think that would be useful. So if we can have that, that would be great. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Any other comments? Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes, I have a couple of questions for you. We'll start by thank you. Thank you. This is phenomenal work. I think every time you come, we're just so amazed with the progress that you make between each of your visits to us. So thank you. And I feel like at this very moment, my husband is like wrangling my two small children, being like, she's at a meeting again. I'm trying to wrangle them and put them to bed and read to them for their, because we've been ingrained that we have to do it no matter how wild on a summer night they are. So thank you for the work that you're doing. We know how important it is. Two quick questions for you. One is around your delivery success rate. Like you said, we know our families are highly mobile, and so I'm wondering that you sent out 135,000 books. What's the delivery success rate? And then my other question is around, since you have this information of where so many of our young families are, if there's already mechanisms in place to communicate with our early childhood team and the Cincinnati Preschool Promise team, so that we can be reaching out to families to let them know how to enroll in preschool, and especially with the new Preschool Promise funding.
You want me to take the first one? Okay, the mobile families. So we already know that our families move around a lot. So we have 3 different ways they can communicate. Number one, they can talk to their doctor, their provider. We also give out a bookmark, and actually I did drop some by for Ms. Jenkins with the after school, and she was making bags for them. But it has not only our number, so we have a line where they can call, and we have an email address so they can type their new address. And you would be very surprised. They call us and let us know when they have moved. They are very protective over their books. And so I listen to messages. I want to keep receiving my books. They are very specific about, where they are and making sure that they keep up with us. Now, some of them may move 3 times, but they will call 3 times. We also have a NCOA list, so the National Change of Address. So we're able to see if they have, if they have registered with the post office. That's something special to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, so we're able to see where they went. So that helps, then they call.
And I think the number of return books we get is a lot lower than we thought. The number of bad addresses we have every month is extraordinarily low. There's only about 10 to 20 kids that we can't track down and get a new address.
Oh, my gosh.
And we have less than 2% of the books come back. Sometimes people may move and the book may still be going where they don't live, but if it's going to the community and the child is using that book, I'm okay with that too. So, but like Tana said, people are really good about changing their address with us. And we do have plans to communicate with Cincinnati Public, with the database about where these children live so they can plan for kindergarten and also reach them and get the kids in, and also Preschool Promise. We're working on right now data sharing and mailings and stuff to connect all those programs.
Yes, Ms. Jones.
My question is similar to Board Member Hoffman's, but if you don't mind indulging me clarifying.
Right.
So the children, they get enrolled in this project by contact through the hospital? How do you enroll them initially in this program?
We've been enrolling them at the Reach Out and Read practices, which are in the primary care offices, not only at Children's, but in the community. So when we see them at the Children's Hospital primary care clinics, the Cincinnati Health Department clinics, Crossroads clinics, Mid-City Pediatrics, a lot of the clinics that serve the underserved. So they don't actually have to come to the hospital. They do come into the medical office. We do have some other partners out in the community that are also enrolling, because we know that not everybody comes to one of our offices. So just wherever we can catch the kids, we do.
Great. And I just want to comment, as the grandparent of a 15-month-old, every time I visit her, she brings me every single book that she owns. So I know them by heart. So she'll get this one as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have kudos? Mr. Nelms, do you have kudos today?
I was thinking about this, giving kudos a day off, because it's summer break. And it's always somebody to acknowledge, and I'm looking in the audience as to see who I could acknowledge rather briefly. I see one person, but I think her acknowledgement has to be more formalized. She feeds us on a monthly basis, so I'm gonna wait for that kudos. So I'll just pull a kudo out my hat. All the assistant principals that do a hard job during the school year, that's really not, I think, highly recognized, that they keep the school running. They deal with a lot of issues that we probably can't even imagine. So kudos to those assistant principals for their diligence and hard work this past school year. That's my kudos.
Yes, Ms. Bolton.
I have one just to make note, again, appreciating the Marvin Lewis Learning is Cool program. I know we have a tight relationship with the coach and this group, but it was very wonderful in the Sunday paper to get multiple pages of, and there's a couple of Covington schools mentioned, but I won't go there, but just name after name after name of our kids on the honor roll. And it's great that you know very well that their families made sure that their names were published and there, and this might be the first time, and it won't be the last time that these kids will be in the newspaper. So kudos to that whole program.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thousands of kids, our kids.
And I have retirements to acknowledge from our civil service personnel: Virginia Durkis, Donna Donahue, Deborah Jones, Kathy Keeling, April Mack, Robert A. Osborne, Wanda Paisley, and Diane Porter. We congratulate you on your retirement, and we'll miss you, and we thank you for your service to our children. Now, we are now at the item on our agenda for hearing the public. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak, and Mrs. Wagner will be our timekeeper. When the buzzer goes off, your 3 minutes are up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. When your name is called, please come to the podium to speak. Well, tonight we have one speaker, and that's Mr. Barry Sholak. Welcome, Mr. Sholak, again.
All right, Barry.
Very good. Name is Barry Sholak. I'm here to present what I would consider the Citizens Award. Turn it off. Okay. Sorry about that. Turn this off. I'll start over again if you don't mind. Okay, that's all. I want to present what I would consider citizen awards to several outstanding people who have worked for the school board for many years. And one of those obviously is the superintendent. Let me just,
We agree. We agree.
I've always been impressed by your superintendent. She's not only a good administrator, but she comes off as a very kind,
Yeah.
caring
Yeah.
person, and it shows through everything she does. So it's always impressed me, and I just wanted her to know that I appreciate what she's done for the school system. The second award goes to my very favorite public relations person. I've seen this person work under great terrain and tough terrain. She's always presented the school board in the best light she could. And she's been a real positive force to show what the school system is about. And I just wanted to let her know that I appreciate not only her work, but the work she's done for everybody. She's one person that doesn't fake the news, and she doesn't do alternative news either. So I just wanted to share those feelings that I know that I missed a going away party they had on Friday, I believe. So I thought I'd better come here and tell you how I feel about you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, would you please present the resolution for board consideration?
Yes, thank you. You have before you the policy, the revised policy 8515 on wellness. This resolution represents a almost year-long process of review from what used to be like a 60-page document. So it's been condensed, and as Board Member Nelms was acknowledging Jessica Shelley, this is an excellent time because she's here, and she and Dr. Kevin Jameson led a committee in the district that worked to revise this policy. It meets the guidelines of the USDA standards. As a matter of fact, it exceeds the standards. So we're very proud of that we set the bar extremely high, and we have gone down our checklist and we meet those standards, and we will be reviewing this on a regular basis, probably yearly, whereas the federal rule only requires every 3 years, but we plan to review it every year. And this also, the revised resolution also incorporates the feedback from the board from our September meeting. So I present the resolution amending Board Policy 8515 on wellness, presented as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Mrs. Hoffman, will you please present the next resolution for board consideration?
Sure. And congratulations to Ms. Shelley and Dr. Jameson and their team. That was a monumental amount of work, so thank you.
The world's longest.
Okay, so now I am introducing a resolution rescinding board policies 8500 food services, 8510 sale and consumption of nutritional foods, and 8550 vending machines and school stores, because part of the reason we did the wellness policy was because our policies were scattered amongst different locations, and it was hard for from a usability standpoint. So that amazing team incorporated all of this stuff into the wellness policy we just passed. So we now don't need these separate policies.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions or comments? Mrs. Wagner, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Mr. Manera, will you please present the next resolution for board consideration?
Yes, the resolution that I'm presenting is approving the 2018 board business meeting schedule. And it's a schedule that just outlines all of our public meetings, and I present it as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Oh, Ms. Bolton.
Well, to be clear, if we approve this, then we are talking in terms of a significant change to board work and board opportunity to meet with the public, and wanted to make sure that we're comfortable with changing long-held traditions regarding the starting time and also having weekly meetings. I mean, this is very, very important just to make sure that we're aware of it. The starting times to be better for both the administration and the public.
As well as location too. There are some dates that we're going to be out in the schools and in public, so we are agreeing to move in a more
And I think
very
it's,
different way.
I think it's very useful that there are weeks also that we will not be meeting. It's probably helpful in part to the administration and also to our ability to focus on the big picture in a consistent way and give people time to do their work. So I think it's super. If the administration's supportive of it, then I'm happy to vote for it.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
And I am assigned the next resolution. It's a resolution for Cincinnati Public Schools fiscal year 2016-2017 final annual appropriations. I present this resolution as printed for adoption, and I call for a second.
Second.
Is there discussion?
Just a question, is this is the final appropriations, if the treasurer could explain what that might mean? And does it vary from the appropriations made the beginning of this fiscal year when we passed this past year's budget?
Right, so the board approves the treasurer authority to spend money at the fund level. And so whenever there's revisions to funds, so it's such as we get new grants or new donations, whatever, we have to, the board has to approve the appropriation in order for us to actually use the money. And so we revise it, we're trying to do it quarterly, so we capture all the new changes if we get new federal funds or changes to the general fund. And so this is the final appropriation. I have to file it with the Hamilton County Budget Commission tomorrow. so that they can do the certification of estimated resources for the next year.
And the question, does this include the general fund, but other funds as well?
All funds.
All funds are included in this, so this is actually the amount of money that is before us that we have to make best use of.
Well, this was to finish out the current fiscal year. So
Yes.
yes, this is the amount of money that we were allowed to spend by fund.
Last year.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Ms. Bolton, would you please present the next resolution for board consideration?
Gladly. Looking forward to the next school year, fiscal year, if we will, 2017-2018, annual appropriations resolution for this coming year of all funds. I submit as written, and it is outlined for you, and hope for passage.
There a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Mrs. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
I would only add, Madam Chair, this is the last Ronan budget.
Yes, it is.
That girl from the west side who has shepherded us through a number of, 3 different treasurers, but there's been one superintendent, and you leave us in good stead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone's input, everyone's work. It went very smoothly this year. We weren't in the papers, which is always a plus. We have a balanced budget that is required by law, that meets the needs of our children and our families, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Nelms, would you please present the next resolution for board consideration?
Gladly, Madam President. I have a resolution declaring intent to proceed with the election on the question of renewal of an emergency tax levy, 8.43 mills, and I present as written.
And a second, please? Second. Discussion?
I think it would be great to have the superintendent and the treasurer explain what this means and the significance and the importance of this renewal.
Thank you.
So this is a renewal levy. There will be the third renewal on this levy, 51.5 million. It's a fixed sum levy. And in order to be put on the ballot, you had to first do a resolution that was the intent to be in the ballot. This resolution is approving the ballot language so that we can file it with the Board of Elections. So we can be included on the November, get an issue number and be included on the November ballot.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
How much is it? Just the dollar amount
51,500,000.
in comparison to even the new money that we just passed. This is a larger amount.
Right, and used for general operations, so it would be fairly significant issue for us.
It was the one passed in 2012 that's now up for renewal.
Right.
And does not increase taxes.
It does not increase taxes now,
In fact, it may lower them a tad, but
by about $9 a year.
about $9 a year.
We'll take it.
Although, exactly, because housing values have gone up, so the millage can be rolled back a bit.
And I would make the connection about housing values going up and us out of the economic dire straits that we've been through. Again, part of your superintendency was, having to deal with that. But that also means that schools must be doing a pretty good job if property values go up. I mean, they understand that in the suburbs. Hopefully, everybody understands that in the city, too.
Mrs. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones? Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
Ms. Jones, will you please present the next resolution for board consideration?
Yes, I present for your consideration resolution to transfer funds to the school-wide pooling fund from the general fund, Title I, Title IIA for fiscal year 17-18. I submit as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
Would you like me to explain?
Yes, sure.
All right, so because you appropriate at the fund level, in order for us to create the school-wide pool, we have to have authority to transfer money into the fund, 598. And so money's come from the general fund and Title I and Title IIA. So now you're giving me, now that you approved the fund levels, now you're giving me authority to move money into that fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Ms. Bolton.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
Superintendent Ronan, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. This evening, I'd like to highlight one of our teachers who's running for a special recognition in the coming school year. Her name is Lana Powers. She's a language arts teacher at Withrow High School, and she was nominated by a community member, Quinlan Davis, who calls her a pillar of the community and who's passionate for her students and is recognized by them as a rock star. And her nominator says there's no limit to where and how Ms. Powers will encourage her student. Now, she doesn't have the award yet. What a National Life Insurance will award 17 awards throughout the country next year. Winners will be announced through a surprise award ceremony at their schools. Now, we're hoping, of course, that our teacher is among one of the grand prize finalists, which will mean she'll be honored at a national awards ceremony next spring in Bermuda. So we're wishing Ms. Powers best of luck, and we hope she wins. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the revised recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. You have it.
Any discussion? Ms. Bolton?
Just a question on the superintendent's report. Are we voting regarding some of the, is that part of the budget process, or is the appropriations? It's going to be in the treasurer, it's in the treasurer's. Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Ms. Bolton.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the revised report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Second? Any questions or comments on the treasurer's report?
Since the budget piece is part of that, and we're preparing to pass the budget, and we've done all the things we're supposed to do to get the budget ready and go before the public with the budget hearing, just it would be useful on this to have a little bit of discussion or information regarding the preschool promise monies, because when one looks at the line item, I think in the treasurer's report, you might just want to talk a little bit more about the preschool line item in the treasurer's report, and then also explain how the tuition assistance piece is not necessarily part of that line item, because that's causing some confusion in the community.
So the budget that you're about to approve is our general fund operating budget. So it includes the expenses that we plan to incur to support our children, including expanding preschool classrooms for next year. The preschool promise, the CPP money, so we collect $15 million a year. We're anticipating collecting $15 a year out of that $48 million levy. So for every dollar we receive from the county on property taxes, we set aside 15/48 of that into a special cost center in the general fund. So that money is set aside in a special cost center, is not part of this general fund budget. The details between tuition assistance and community improvement grants and administration are still being worked through. And so what we've asked you to do is appropriate the full amount. So if you notice, the appropriation in the general fund is higher than the general fund operating budget. The difference is the money that we anticipate collecting for that $15 million levy. And so when we iron out all the details about the tuition assistance and how it's going to split out and the rest of the costs, is we'll come back and give an update to both boards. Did I answer your questions? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think that's part of the confusion, and I think you helped clear that up, and indeed, with the tuition assistance opportunities that are there, it does impact our costs and our revenue to perform.
Right. So our
preschool.
board was very clear in that we wanted to fund 3 and 4-year-olds up to 200% poverty. There doesn't appear to be enough money in the tuition assistance budget to fully do that for both entities, CPS and non-CPS. So we're trying to determine how best to handle that situation.
If I may. So the tuition assistance is not enough money, meaning because other things are budgeted as well?
Correct.
It's not that providing tuition assistance to 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds at 200% it's more necessarily than 15 million, but there are other costs in that budget.
So there's two issues happening. Yes, there are items in their line item budget that they're looking at to see if they can delay or shave off to allow more money to be put towards tuition assistance. The second issue is it's a 5-year levy that started January 2017 because we asked for the public to approve us allowing to collect early on. So for the first 6 months of that levy, the current school year, we've collected about $7.5 million that is unspent except for the startup costs of 1.5. They're trying to take that money and put it at the back end because in the 5th year of the levy only funds a half a year of a school year because it ends in December of that year. So there's conversation about how much of that $7.5 million can we use to fund the startup on tuition assistance and how much can they reserve for the last end and how did that look?
If I might. So the building block for the budget for preschool, 15 million, should and is tuition assistance for the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds.
Yeah, the majority of the spend is in tuition assistance.
And so that's the top priority, I would assume, getting the children in the seats, both in CPS quality providers and non-CPS, because it's only 3, 4, and 5-star providers that will be receiving tuition assistance, correct?
That's correct.
It's hard for me to think that there's too many other things within the budget that would be as important as getting as many kids in the quality seats as possible to get the success that we need in a timely manner so that we could pass a renewal levy in 5 years. I mean, that's just one board member. I mean, and I'm concerned that that has to be the biggest priority for the 3, 4, and 5, because the 3, 4, and 5, or at least the CPS folks, we don't, and properly don't have access to the quality improvement grants or those sorts of things, or even some of the professional development, but we need the kids in the seats, and a number of other quality providers have said, we're worried that we're not going to be able to expand early in, and knowing the district's theory of levies, where you start earlier and asking for the money than waiting till the last. It just seems like we have some knowledge that it would be very difficult for me to be happy about any family that would not be able to have a seat because we're saving money for someone that is later. I mean, levies are never like that. So help me out I'm very concerned about this.
So let me encourage you by saying that a small team has been created, both entities, small group with 2 board members is on it.
Right.
We're working very collaboratively on how do we share resources in order to save budgetary dollars to fund the most amount of tuition assistance. We've just only had 2 meetings, and so we're working through that. But in order for us to have our budgets moving forward, I have a deadline I had to meet. So that's why we said we'll fund it at the high level, and then we'll get the details later on.
There was also, and I'm not sure if the full board received the 2 pieces of information that you shared with us as a result of these 2 meetings.
You mean the memo?
The memos.
The whole full board got my memo,
The full
yes.
board got all of them?
Or just the first?
The 2. It was Was it two? I thought it was
I had
two.
one memo, well, I retracted this first memo because I made a mistake on it. So there was two memos that went out, but I retracted one and just sent the first.
Okay, and the full board
Yes.
received it already?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was very helpful, but I maintain that the greatest opportunity for success that we're going to have this year or the next 4 years is to get as many families on these seats for all the 3, 4, and 5 quality providers, not just CPS. That's our cohort. Our cohort are the 3, 4, and 5 providers. It isn't CPS, the other 3, 4, 5s, and then everybody else. No, we're in this big cohort of quality providers.
Yes.
If you want to have a success, even as early as this coming levy renewal that we have in November, there can't be dozens of children or hundreds of children who don't have seats if they meet the 200% priority. That, I'm just telling you, that's what'll be there. And I'm thrilled with the cooperation, thrilled and completely trusting both you and the deputy and the 2 board members. I'm just saying, in this budget and for the success of our November renewal and the one down 5 years, knowing we're not going to wait till the last minute to put that on, you better have every seat be able to be filled for those kids in most need, because that's going to be the first thing that's going to be checked.
And I want to add to that, I think maybe it'll help
Please,
support
help me.
or clarify, I'm not quite sure which one, but I think my gist from the conversations that have been held so far is that we're on the same page with that. It's how you get there.
Exactly.
And there's still a lot of unknowns, like looking at the list of 3, 4, and 5-star providers, we're not really sure how many seats are there. And that's one of the things that CPP is trying to look at. So we have an accurate figure. But again, that's going to take time too, because it's a level of work that they have to do. So I hear what you're saying, and I think, the job of the group is to really bring resources together that may not cost us a lot of the administrative money, but put efforts into trying to find out and clarify some of the unknowns with that.
And again, I've been very reassured in the last few weeks about that. We're shared services and nobody duplicating what everybody else is doing and what have you, and finding the needed money in other budgets and our budgets, which leads us to, we have to find a way to see them in that levy money to the funding and the support for our workforce development committee, because we can't bear that alone. And I'm just, what I always hear the superintendent and the treasurer say is that first, the money goes where the children are. And that's how this budget, that when you put it all together, I'm not even gonna say how much all of this our total budget is, but when you put it all together, it starts with where the children and the families are. And everything else comes second. I've heard that for 10 years, and I'm confident that that's the message that's carried into those collaborative meetings. It's where the kids are, whether it's the schools or preschool seats or whatever, because that's the surest way we're going to succeed and get the readiness up among the children that need it the most.
Any other questions or comments? If not, Mrs. Wagner, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Ms. Bolton?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
Are there any inquiries or updates? Yes, Mrs. Hoffman.
So the workforce development charter was in our packets again this week with the revisions that a few of us sent to Phyllis. And I think my question is, where does it go from here? So it looks like it has captured the feedback of the board, and so we're wondering what is the next step? How do we
I
get
still have a couple
this?
of more comments that I'll submit tomorrow.
You have more comments?
I have just a couple.
Okay, so they should go to Pat now since Phyllis is out this week. And so then what is the next step from there of like how we actually move this forward, get it to a final version? Do we vote on it? What are those steps? I think we're all feeling some urgency to getting this done.
Ms. Ronan, do you have a response to that?
Well, I'm sorry.
Getting the final
Getting
version
the
of the
final.
workforce development chart,
Oh.
do we need to vote on it? How does that
Oh.
work? Like, how does,
Yes, we're going to have to put it back we'll have to put it in a resolution and bring it back, I believe. And would you mind if we were to pick up any additional individuals who wanted to serve? We would also have to put that in a resolution.
Yep.
Because we did invite 4 or 5 additional individuals, but they did not get back with us within the timeline when we first ran it through.
At that one, the initial meeting, I think Mr. Ty Stuckey, whom you know, is involved with Area 13 or whatever it's called, workforce development.
Well, I think what's
was that
well, I can tell you what it's about. It's because in our minds, we know workforce development and we know it's preschool workforce development, but when you say those words out in public, the general public immediately thinks of apprenticeships and putting people to work, matching people with jobs. So I did ask that on the top of we need to start calling it the Preschool Workforce Development Council, so everyone realizes it's about building that preschool capacity and has nothing to do with apprenticeships or finding jobs for individuals. I even had someone say, well, is that about finding jobs, for people with felony convictions? And I had to say, no, it's not. That's a great idea, but it's not what we're about. So it is going to come back with preschool, and I think we just need to always say that, because I think that's what's caused the confusion and got other individuals wanting to be involved, not realizing.
So then our board goal would be that at the July 10th meeting, we vote on this. Right.
Yes, I will make sure,
So we need to manage
yes.
ourselves to that.
I'll make sure it's in the recommendations.
Great.
Any other questions or comments about that issue? Okay, Mr. Manera?
Yeah, today we had a great student achievement meeting, and I realized we're churning a lot of things that impact not only our students and our teachers, but also our cafeteria workers and our staff at the front desk and our clinical engineering. And I'm just curious how much we actually get to pass down to them as far as professional development, or when there's a major change. You don't have to answer right now because I know that but I definitely want, and I don't know what committee can follow up on this, but it just dawned on me, we do a lot of changes and we think highly of our teachers because it's our biggest staff population, and of course they're impacting the students in the classroom, but we make a lot of policy changes that affect the security guards, for example. So when we look at things like calendar and we look at things that implementing new policies, how much of that then is impacted by also the work calendar of that staff, and also in what ways is it being presented to them? Because we do a lot of work, but if it's not getting efficient and is not achieving the impact and the result, and I don't have the answer to that. Maybe you guys do. You guys have an excellent answer for that. So I don't know if there's a committee that can follow up and ask for a report. That's why I hesitated to make it an assignment. More or less, I wanted to introduce the topic to the board members. Maybe you guys know more than I do.
Well, I can tell you for the 1,800 employees we have in AFSCME, there are 3 professional development days designated throughout the year, and they're typically on the teacher records days when children aren't in school, and we do provide professional development on those dates. And that would include your security guards, that would be your parapros, that would be your lunchroom.
And so how many and again, I appreciate the feedback, the immediate feedback, but how many I would assume, and there's just an assumption, I would assume that most of that staff has children in our district versus, and again, I could be completely wrong, versus teachers. And so so when there's an off-school day, I'm assuming that causes maybe some childcare difficulties for some of that staff. So again, I'm not asking for a full report right now, but I'm just curious, how does that develop? And I don't know, I'm just concerned that we do a lot of work in policy, and the reason I'm asking is because the people that need to get those type of information, so our school, or for our positive school culture to actually change in all facets of the school, is And so, again, I'm bringing the topic up more for discussion and helping and asking for like, how do we use that filter when we change something? So 3 PD days, but what about if in the middle of the school and 2 PD days have passed, we change a policy that impacts security? You know, whether it's discipline or a school, how do we then try to filter all that information to our security guards, for example? Again, these are just inquiries.
Right, that can be a challenge.
Ms. Jones?
I'm really trying to understand. I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you're asking, but based on what I understand, policies implemented based on the work of the committees, right? Administration then implements policies, procedures, and practices, and also communication for how it happens. Maybe I'm assuming that what you're talking about is maybe we don't hear the feedback of what the impact is. So maybe closing the loop of communication between administration and board committees about once a policy is implemented, what's the practice, and, you know, do we have any results or whatever? That's what I'm assuming that I'm hearing. I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm not.
Yes, it's part of that. And again, it's just an inquiry because it's not an assignment or anything. It's just, I think that sometimes I personally think more about the teacher calendar and the students, and I haven't asked the question, are we giving our other staff members enough time to fully understand and absorb the changes that we want to happen?
How does it filter through all levels?
Right. Is it
what you're
working?
asking.
Is there an
Yeah.
impact? I guess to you, the feedback of closing the loop and saying, yes, it's working, or we received this feedback from security, or we received this feedback from clinical engineering. I don't know, maybe that's going too much in the weeds, but I don't think it's bad for us board members to know how all of our employees are being, having the information disseminated. And if it's only 3 PD days, does it work that they are during the days? I don't know, that school is off, considering that they might have students that are gonna be home that day, and it might make it hard for them to come to the PD.
I have just a comment. I think when we're so focused, and in the years before we have been so focused on the achievement and the student growth, it does force us, properly so, to concentrate on the instructional staff more so than everybody else. But as we've shifted, talking so much more about, in light of the achievement and growth and the hope for that, shifting to more of a culture in each building. The culture in each building is just is determined as much often by the support staff, administrative staff, as it is the teaching staff. And so I think you're right, that we aren't that familiar with the kind of professional development those folks go through, let alone what the feedback is. It might, and I don't know which committee could look, I think it's student achievement that does the professional development, if that's the list, at least in the protocol or the bylaws. But I do think that's an interesting piece. I mean, especially even when you're talking in terms of the front office, you know, the welcomeness of what's happening in the front office, or who's answering the phone, or who's cleaning the building, or who's there after hours to greet the community and make sure it gets cleaned up after. We may need to spend more time talking in terms of our support staff and non-teaching staff and their development and the communication as we go from the shift of achievement and growth to culture. I think it probably does, and community engagement.
So it's not an assignment, and we can then churn it over, we can discuss more at student achievement to see.
If that's the will of the board, we can start there, but I think it is a whole board piece of information. I don't think it fits comfortably in finance or policy.
And positive school culture, like you just said, is everybody that's existing in that school, and I just didn't have the answer.
Well, it's I'm glad you raised it, because I hadn't thought about that.
Well, kind of from a broader perspective, I mean, this is particular to our support staff, your inquiry, but we've really, the board has focused very, very strongly on our policies. And we have written policies and they're on our website. But the next big step we need to make is having written procedures that support our policies that are available broadly for everyone, for our community, for our parents, for our teachers, for our support staff, everyone who's involved with our district, so that those procedures are readily available. And then once the procedures are available, then it would be opportunity for some training on implementation. But we're kind of missing, to me, from a policy wonk, we're missing that middle piece, that procedure piece, because I'm sure that there are procedures somewhere for many of our policies, but they're not, as far as I know, consistently available in writing, so that if a policy is passed and there's a group that is interested in, what do we do from here, it's more, am I mistaken on that? But I have not seen that, or the board has not had access to a formal body of written procedures based on our policies.
You are correct. In the past, when a lot of our board policies were just one paragraph, and now a lot of our policies are very detailed. In fact, they've kind of been criticized in the past that they really incorporate the procedure in them, but any policy that required, for instance, a form, like a field trip form, we do have those because that's has to be attached to the policy. But you are correct, in the past we used to have procedures and policies, but in general, once we adopted Neola and the procedures the policies got so detailed, they almost spelled the procedure out in them. But there are occasions that you do need procedures.
So that, to me, that would be something for the board to discuss, not just in student achievement, but in policy, how to provide that, because that, that's right, I have the committee switched to see where the policies either could be streamlined and moved into procedure, or to, because you're right, our procedures did get lengthy, and now with the revisions, we're getting more streamlined in our policies. So this seems to be a trend towards.
Is this an assignment?
It's kind of
or an
a long-term
inquiry or
assignment.
review or what? I mean, because
I think that
I'm
the
still
board
not
needs
clear
to
of the
discuss-
question.
Well, I think the board needs to discuss this as a board before we move it to policy, to see if this is the board's desire to have a body of procedures that are written and available as our.
I think that's different than what Daniel was talking about from a standpoint of, it wasn't just a change of policy that gets communicated, it was a change of implementation or priorities or whatever. So, I mean, I'm comfortable either way, whatever we do, but I do think it's ironic that the superintendent has pointed out that we're more and more putting procedures in policy. As I know we've, for 10 years, been talking about trying not to do that. And indeed, the world has changed.
And it may have been because there was a need for procedure, and so we put it in.
Maybe it's the absence of administrative rules and procedures that the board felt compelled to start doing it all in one place. So that's, I think, should be an assignment for review as to whether or not that is an issue, yours. But I don't see that connected necessarily with what Daniel's concerned about, whether all of our support staff is not just aware of policies, but our priorities and what we're trying to achieve.
And I know our HR director just came back in, Mr. McDole just stepped back in, and if you'd like to add anything to the professional development we do with our non-teaching employees on those 3 PD days a year in terms of changes in policy or culture, and I'm not, maybe you could speak to the topics we covered this year at those 3 PD days for our paraprofessionals, for our security. I know Mr. Mooring for the security staff usually has specialized training if it's required to keep their license, et cetera.
We have separate PD for both the school clerical staffs that would be represent, the titles are changing, but that would represent the clerical staff at the schools. And then we also have security has specialized training. We have training for paraprofessionals. That's broken into those working with disabilities versus regular ed classrooms. And then I know food services has their own training as well. That's in the beginning of August.
Thank you.
Ms. Spades, if I, and from that professional development, they do need highly specialized training in their fields, but I think it would be great for us to see also what training they receive that puts them in line with whatever we're trying to achieve at the site. I mean, they have to do the specialized stuff, absolutely. But how much are they considered being part of the school site culture, the school site one plan, all those sorts of things that make a difference in the environment within the building. So I'd be interested to see that.
Well, that's the thing, like, so where can we take this conversation to, right? Because, like, I totally get that. I think that's great, but we want our schools, so the conversation was great at student achievement because of that. We want our schools to look like their community. We want to have our principals driving the positive school culture that reflects the identity and the nature of our students and their families, but it requires buy-in from everybody, not just the teachers. And so that was, I guess, a more clearer way to articulate what I was asking is what kind of feedback do we have? And again, I'll be happy to get a memo from you guys later on. It doesn't need to be right now, but how do we measure that everyone else, all the supporting staff, how do we address their concerns? How do we address whether they have questions about it that make sense later on in the year? Because these are things that some of the changes we're implementing, even in our enrollment, right? They represent the school and parents might be asking them questions. I don't know, maybe I'm going too far into this, but I just want to have some feedback to know if everything that's being changed in the school, it's working.
Any other inquiries or updates? Or assignments?
Yep, so coming out of the ad hoc notes from June 16th, there were 2 assignments we'd like to make with the board's approval of these. One is, so we know we made a board calendar for 2017 that we all passed, and that we had some things on it like recommended dates for ACES meetings or, for retreats or things like that. And in the busyness of just getting our meetings together, we tend to run right over those. And so one of our assignments is that we would like to have our board office staff manage us to those dates. So to ensure that the required actions, the deadlines that are on there, the meetings that are being suggested, the retreats, that they can really help manage us to those dates. So kind of turning over some of this over to Pat and Phyllis to help manage us to those. So that would be one assignment if the board is agreeable to that. And then the other one is, one of the other things when we were going through our goals, we noticed was that we had come up with some measures for Vision 2020 that we were interested in seeing, and talking with our administration about what they're measuring. And we thought it made the most sense to have that conversation in Student Achievement Committee. So in order to move that work forward for that goal that the board set, we would like to assign that to the Student Achievement Committee, if it's okay with the rest of the board and the Student Achievement Committee.
Is there consensus on the board for that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other assignments?
I have one out of finance. We had discussion prior to the quorum ending, and it was a discussion that dealt with the development of the old Anthem building. And I think the treasurer was at that meeting, obviously, where we talked about it. And I know we've had presentations before in finance at least once. And I know that the board has had some discussion, and I know general counsel's been involved with it. But I think coming out of that, it seemed as though it would be good for us to assign to the treasurer a way of explaining the most recent proposal from the developer regarding Anthem, because there was some very specific discussion about the cost to us and making us whole. And the treasurer was quite articulate about the most, at least one of the proposals before us regarding Anthem did not necessarily in this discussion, according to the treasurer, make us whole. It was an improvement, but not where it would need to be. So my hope would be that from finance, that there is an interest in getting real numbers from the treasurer as to what this proposal really means, rather than necessarily only using the numbers that have been proposed from the developers, and for her to find a way to communicate to us what would make us whole, or why this does not make us whole, however she wants to proceed.
Happy, excuse me, happy to do that. When would you like me to do that, given that you're not meeting again until July 10th?
I think before that meeting, and certainly before the next finance meeting. I mean, this board wants to do public business in public, and this is a hot topic within the city and around. We have negotiations coming up in a year or so regarding the city and TIF and what have you. But for this particular proposal, I think the argument was that the belief that the district is making too much of a sacrifice financially, even in this newer proposal, but would like to hear what you might have to say about it, and you run the numbers for us.
Sure.
And if that includes Mr. DiMuzio, I think was a suggestion from the superintendent at the end of that meeting, or whomever, and certainly general counsel who's been working on it.
And that would be an assignment to the treasurer to report back to the full board?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Any other assignments?
I have an announcement.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So in the next day or two, we're going to be sending out a press release. We're relaunching the OpenGov platform. We had to take it down and then relaunch it because we changed out our financial system. So we wanted to make sure that we're being fully transparent and accurate with our data. And so now that we've been up and we're switching over to new year, new budget just adopted, thank you very much, we will be relaunching it for the public to continue being informed. We had a great team. We called it the finance marketing team with Ms. Bolton served as a board member appointed by the finance committee, and we had Craig Rosen up there and quite a few audit committee members, and Julie was on some of those conversations to help us figure out how do we better market our financial information to tell our public about our finances and to be fully transparent and understandable. And so it's very user interactive, lots of graphs. You can change them any view you want. Look at our spend and our revenues, and every day Brittany's adding more data to it. So I'd encourage everyone to check it out. It's a link off of our website.
And potentially in a future meeting, it might be great to have a little demonstration of it here, if that would be okay with the rest of the board.
That'd be great. Anything else? Having no other business to come before the board, I declare the meeting adjourned.